6:30.
Look at this.
Hey, I'm on time. I'm glad I was early.
We are being again recorded by WCTV tonight. Mr. White got permission, I've granted the cameras and property stations. Is there anyone else that wishes to record tonight? Be recorded? Seeing none, we move on. We start with citizens' participation. Does anyone wish to speak? Again, seeing none, approval of meeting minutes. Minutes of November 16th, any motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Second, anyone have any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you vote aye, Laura?
Oh, whatever you, did you vote aye?
Doesn't work that way. Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
501. The town administrator's report. Hopefully it'll be short tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be very short tonight.
Did you bring our October reports?
They're still in progress. I will get them to you as soon as they are ready. And Derek Sullivan has been working on them to the accounting department, so I apologize for any inconvenience. As you know, the audit report has been scheduled to be delivered jointly to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee next Wednesday, December 14th. Kelly, help me, I think it's 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. I have been in touch with Mr. Powers and his field team. They've finished up their activity at Town Hall. They've wrapped up. They're going to deliver the reports to us hopefully before then. I know some folks have varying opinions on that. I particularly after reading laws like Sarbanes-Oxley and other initiatives at the federal level, I think that the audit reports should go directly to the Board of Directors or the Board of Selectmen or the Board of whoever directly, but that's just my opinion. I have talked to Jim Powers about that because, as you know, these are very important documents. And I also wanted to let you know that the accounting team, led by Justin Cole, some of you have met Justin, you meet him next Wednesday, he'll be at the meeting, have been working on a concurrent basis to make certain that, I mean, obviously we have draft financials and draft management letter from 2010, which we responded to, which basically has given some guidance to the accounting firm. They will bring this up to date and have been working with the accounting office to keep us reconciled, particularly on cash basis, through the first 5 months of the fiscal year. They're right up to speed to where we are, and let me tell you where I'm going with this. I have asked the auditing firm of Powers and Sullivan, they'll announce this next week, to come in to do a 6-month audit review. I'm not waiting to the end of the fiscal year or the third quarter. We're taking a very strident stand and going forward. They will come in with their auditing team and look at all of our record keeping and reconciliations, check out our internal control structure from July 1st, 2011 through December 31st, 2011. They'll do that sometime in late February. I'll schedule it. I'll keep the committee informed. I think it's a very important step forward. So we'll know through the first 6 months of the fiscal year where we stand in fiscal 2012. I'm not going to wait till the end of the fiscal year. And just about every leadership team meeting, and I know members have joined us from committee, Chairman Cruz and others from the Board of Selectmen, I've made it very clear that department managers, our leadership team directors, are responsible for the respective departments, from the harbor master, to the town clerk. So that will give us a good litmus test, in my opinion, as to where we are in fiscal 2012. And once again, that's the status on the audit side of things. And in terms of state filings, I know Justin has been working on Schedule A and the recap sheet, and I'm sure he will be able to give us an update next Wednesday. A team of individuals, including John Foster, Treasurer Collector, the Director of Assessment, Elsa Miller, myself, Derek Sullivan, have been meeting in anticipation of setting the tax rate, making certain that, as you all know, I'm sure, we're going to try annual year, which is a full revaluation year. That assessment, from what I understand, at the state level on the property values is in its preliminary stages, but we've got a go-ahead from the state to be able to move forward with a week of review, which I believe is coming up next week. I know Chairman of the Board of Assessors reported to the Board of Selectmen last night that process is taking shape and will unfold over the next 2 weeks. And once again, we'll stay in touch with the committee relative to state filings with regards to Schedule A and recap sheet. I also wanted to keep the committee updated. Might sound like a little bit, but just so that you know, we're on top of the FEMA reimbursements to us. We expect to get 75 cents on a dollar back to the town, and we've spent over $310,000 for hurricanes, tropical storm, whatever you want to call it, Irene, and that finally is happening through the police department, through Chief Stanley, who's our emergency operations director, and Lieutenant John Walczak. So those dollars will go back into, you might see some anomalies in the reporting that you're getting, because the municipal maintenance area, just as an example, spent $125,000 clearing roads, making sure that we got out of the way of the NSTAR folks so we could get electricity restored. Those dollars are going right back into those budgets so that we can keep them balanced through fiscal 2012. I am working on a submission, working with the Board of Selectmen and with you. My deadline, as you know, per the charter, is December 15th to submit my operational budget and capital budget, and we've been working on that. A couple high points or low points, or whatever you want to call them. Pension costs are up 16.74%. Last year they were down a couple $100,000. This year it's up $392,000, and that's just the nature of that beast. We obviously have to restore funds to the healthcare side of the equation, although I want to assure you that we'll be monitoring the fund very carefully. And I did say, want to clarify, that in the preliminary reports that we made with regards to the healthcare holiday, that we would shoot for mid-year. And let me tell you why we said that. We wanted to get a good sense, because there's a lag period of something called incurred but not reported. And what that means is that people are walking into health clinics and hospitals that are getting serviced, and we don't know exactly what the costs are until the bill comes home. So I'm playing it very safe. It might be sometime in January or February when we do the healthcare holiday. But let me say this here. Ginger Hastings, who reported to us last week, at the last meeting that I attended, has been working very closely with us. All of our health plans except one have hit the loss ratio or below the loss ratio, so that we know that we are right where we're supposed to be from a budgeted standpoint. And once again, the holiday is something where the healthcare trust fund, per the audited financial statements that we got for fiscal 2010, by Powers and Sullivan, assured us that there was a big enough of a cushion, if you will, to make the holiday happen. And that will further be enhanced, by the way, through something called the, I think I reported on this. If I didn't, I was remiss. We're doing a dependent audit on the Section 26 of the new law that was passed on municipal healthcare, Chapter 62 of the Act of 2011. We are checking every record of every individual that's on our health plan. And let me tell you, we're hearing about it, because people are going back to have to find their marriage certificates from California or Nevada or wherever else, and you know what? It's the law. So I apologize for people that might have to spend an extra $10 or $20 to get their records in order, but it is the law. And within 2 years, we're supposed to have provided that dependent on it. We've taken it up within the first 6 months of the passage of the law. So we're leading the way, and that will, in my estimation, provide additional cushion within the healthcare trust fund, because already I think there's at least a half a dozen or maybe 8 individuals have been have removed themselves from the healthcare plan. They realized we were gonna catch up to where they were, and right or wrong, they just might not have figured it out. But we are working very closely with Group Benefit Solutions to complete that independent health dependent audit and to make certain that we can, once again, keep that healthcare trust fund healthy. Other areas that we're looking at, we know because we settled, you may or may not know, and I'll be sending this to the Board of Selectmen, the police arbitration case has been settled, and pretty much in the favor of the town, pretty much across the board. Things like sick leave buyback, chopped it back, they received approximately a 4% increase, and took some zeros for years that the other unions took as well. So that being said, put in the budget what we need to fund that arbitration, a direction from the state, and what we'll be doing is we'll be working with them now going forward on working on contracts for fiscal 12, 13, and 14. But normally what you're going to see is between, depending upon the lines and the different union contracts, between a 3 or 5% jump in each of the departments, depending upon what unions are in union personnel that are in each department. So you're going to see that increase, and you're going to see, once again, money set aside for the settling of future contracts going forward. We're also looking to follow the Board of Selectmen's directive to increase the stabilization fund, and I'm looking at that recommendation. There'll be an increase. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it'll be more than we put in last year at this particular juncture in time. And those are kind of the highlights of what we've been working with. I'll be filing something, once again, by next Thursday with the Board of Selectmen pursuant to the charter provisions that I have to follow. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Trudell wants to start with.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, to...
Since you're first, you won't be last.
Huh?
Since you're first, you won't be last this time.
We had it last week, and Mark, I'm not going to blindside you. If you don't have an answer for it, I just want you to say I don't have an answer yet.
Listen, I'll learn my lesson. I'll say I don't know.
This gentleman came in and made a presentation on
Sure.
tax title. And I recognize that we would be collecting money that we're generating 16% interest on, but the question I have is, you said that the tax stuff is being reviewed in Boston for property taxes at this point, is that correct? You said something went up to Boston for review.
The values.
Values,
It's a 3-year triennial review.
Question I have is,
Yes.
we have an area, or we have areas, homes, land, that are sliding under in terms of value.
Yes.
So it keeps being added into our outstanding, uncollected property taxes. In other words, if I'm not paying and my house is falling down,
Sure.
I'm gonna wait until you either take it.
Sure.
How does that affect us in terms of we're accruing something we know we're not gonna get the money on?
Right. Probably the best way is, well, in terms of the values, let me say this, what I know about values. If your property is valued less than what you believe it to be, you're probably not gonna come and squawk about or raise some cane about it. You can come in and ask for the assessors to look up, or for any valuation that you might have.
Well, all right, let me try it with a better example.
Okay.
Brenda wanted us to turn some land over up off of Church Pond Road, and told us how it would become 1-story, etc.
Yep.
Probability of that land ever being turned into a housing project, I believe, is slim.
Okay.
But it continues to accrue taxes
Yes.
as it goes on. So that's what I'm trying to find out. Something that we have a slim chance of collecting the money on,
Yes.
because they're either not going to build, or the building is falling down and they're not going to do anything with it.
Right.
What is impact on the uncollected taxes that the town, because we continue to accrue those uncollected taxes?
That's correct. Okay, let me take a stab at that.
Okay.
What I think Mr. Sofroni, or whatever, what he was trying to say is that as fast as you try to run, to your point, and as many auctions, and we had one last summer in 2010, we didn't have an auction in 2011. We unloaded, say, $250,000. You're never gonna catch up to the $3 or $4 million that's out there.
I agree.
Okay. So what Haverhill and Worcester and other communities have done, have said to companies like this, do an RFP process, which he can participate in. He may not win the bid, but go through it. And there are other companies out there called Expand, and other companies that have called me and said, geez, we understand you might be interested. What will be a process? But here's how it is. That stays as an uncollectible on the balance sheet constantly.
Right.
But Boston kind of says, or I should say the state says, well, we know it's going to be there, but you really haven't collected it and you haven't budgeted it, so you can't spend it. But what I'm saying is for one-time matters, if you have capital needs, we just paved 15,500 linear feet this past year, where the average had been a couple thousand. And my office must get a call at least once an hour about a pothole, street, or something. One-time money. If you can put that into the infrastructure, they'll, once again, as you know, pay you the $1 million, or some portion of that. And I don't think it's about cherry picking, it's about getting it off. It's somewhere, okay, you gotta get it off. You're never gonna collect it, because we don't have staff to do it. So here's your one-time money. You could put it into one-time costs, like roadways, or roofs, or generators, or whatever you want to put it into. And that's what other communities have done. And I don't know if I said this, but I've talked to mayors and managers. Clearly, I talked to Mayor Ferrantini from Haverhill at an MMA meeting recently. And he's not only done this one time, not 2 times, he's done it 3 times. So they know they can't stay up with the volume of that being out there. And it's like anything else. We all generate, when I go to my mailbox, I take the bills out real quick and I put, gotta pay these. I might put these off until next month. I know I gotta pay my mortgage and my insurances and my credit card. We wanna be in that pile. So the culture and climate of payment shifts, I'll say this to you, because, and I probably told you the story about Pinky, but I won't tell you again. It shifts, because people know that you're in the right pile and you're gonna get paid. So Foster's operations start to pick up speed in terms of regular payments. And then there are going to be certain properties through, trusts or debts or whatever that are going to go into tax title. Not that we want to and we don't want to be in the property business. I don't want to be in the property business. The buildings around town with the big red X's, some of them we own. So we've got to find a way to get those down and their liability for us. So the point of it is that sits out there as a receivable that we're never going to see. What this new law has done is allowed cities and towns to say, let's take a stab at getting, I don't know, you pick a number, half of it, 3/4 of it. And because as it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and there's no way to catch up to it unless you have the extra professional assistance.
Can I restructure that question a little bit, though?
Maybe I didn't.
Let me restructure. I want to restructure it a little bit.
Okay.
We sort of chit-chat about this in the past. These particular properties each year continue to generate new taxes, correct?
Yes.
All right. How are those taxes treated in the current year? Do they immediately also go into uncollectible?
Yes.
Or are they treated all right, so they don't come into us and say, well, this
No.
is an amount that's going to be collected.
No.
Go ahead and spend it.
No, in sewer, if for some reason somebody's not paying it, the sewer would accrue as well as, I think at a different rate. I'll let the treasurer collector answer the
Yes,
question.
okay.
I'm not the expert there. But it does accrue to the birth certificate, which is the assessor's card for the property. Whoever owns the property owns that tax liability, and then the sewer would kick into it. And in most cities and towns where you have a unified water department, the water piece would kick into it too.
But the new taxes do not become part of the current year revenue.
No.
That's, I think, part of the concern.
That's correct.
Mrs. Cotillo, you've had your hand up for probably 15 minutes now.
Hi. Mr. Chairman, through you to the town administrator, you mentioned the healthcare holiday.
Yes.
I received a phone call today from a concerned citizen who is an employee of this town. And now you're saying that this may not go until January or February, that is your intention to institute at that point? Are you aware that they were notified that they would be receiving this as December and the first 2 weeks of January?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't know where that notification came from, because we gave our best estimate on the timeline to take a snapshot of the trust fund at its healthiest point. I never said to anybody that it would be definitely done in the month of December, because let me tell you what else is at stake here, and I intend to pursue. There's a benefit to the employee. It's a pre-tax benefit. So it's worth $100. I intend to bargain at the union negotiating table for something for that. Call it another 10% of the sick leave buyback or whatever, vacation buyback. I want to get something for that, because this isn't just something that we said that we would do. I have notified the people I've been negotiating with that we want to talk with them about, we're going to give you $100 of pre-tax dollars in your pocketbook, and you're going to get a month free of health supply or whatever, health services. We want something back. It might be just a sentence or language or holiday or something like that. We want to be able to negotiate that with them, and that's an ongoing process.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I did tell the concerned citizen that I would at least try to find out what date was going to be or what timeline was going to be. I can remember at town meeting we were saying that it was supposed to be mid-year, but I don't remember we were ever putting on a date on it.
No.
But evidently they were notified through, I think it's somebody in the school committee or the school department.
That's unfortunate.
That is, that they were first week of December to the second week of January. That was the timeline. So they were missing together somewhere along the line.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
also remember at town meeting that discussion did come up that they would be measuring it over time to see when it could best be paid. That they would not pay it all up front. And that was
Exactly.
made very, very,
Very clear.
very clear that that would have to happen, and there was not even a guarantee, is my understanding, because
Right.
it made some of us sweat a little bit.
Exactly, there was no guarantee.
There was no guarantee, and that it would be based on what we saw over
Claims
time.
and what transpired there.
Right. Mrs. Brown? you have-
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question, and I know we've gone through the assessment thing, and I just got a call because my house in New Hampshire was decreased in value 25%.
Sure.
So I'm sure that's going to happen here. What is that going to mean to our, you're going to have to raise the tax rate, or what do you,
Well,
what's this all going to mean to us?
it means that, and I was struggling with this because I was writing the budget message to the Board of Selectmen as I was leaving my office, that there's no escape from this.
Exactly.
That when you go to revaluation, and we're a very different community, so that, I'm not sure what community is up north, North Conway.
Yeah, that area, yeah, very expensive.
When you go to an expensive community where you can go where there are large variances, your values can shift pretty significantly. Think about the inner city. Think about the 3 tenements in Dorchester.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so those values will certainly go down and probably stay down for multiple years. We're a little bit different kettle of fish, but I'll say it this way, we're pretty complex because, as you said, we've got some fairly high-valued properties on the water,
Right.
and then you can go a couple of streets down and find some lower values that, the homes that are just not valued in that category. So, and by the way, my goal is, because we had to put $152,000 into the budget to hire a firm to go out and do this work for us, because we didn't have the firepower internally. My goal was in hiring the assessor, Elsa Miller, and the assistant assessor, Greg Minzer, is that if you get the intermittent years right, if you can get out there and take some snapshots of property market rate and sales in the intermittent years, it's going to make it a lot easier in the third year. But the values are slipping, it means you have to run faster, and we're going to have a bit more new growth, because we just had the Rosebrook, one example, the Rosebrook Business Park came online, and that's new growth. It was a cranberry bog a year and a half ago, and now it's a $10 million building. So you have to run faster to catch up, Don, I guess is the best way to say it.
Our overall tax levy will remain the same though, correct?
In the same vicinity, yeah.
The tax levy itself, 2.5, and you're fixed. And the total dollars is how it's reapportioned.
Yeah, it only has
So
slight.
some people could see an increase, and some people would see a decrease. It's a
Yes.
zero-sum game,
Yes.
right? But you're not gonna have the overall levy go up because there was assessments that raised anybody's
No,
property.
no, you are correct.
Right, so it's a zero-sum game. Some people will go up, some people will go down. Mr. Gray?
I guess I didn't understand your comment just now. The total tax revenue will remain the same?
It will move by Proposition 2.5, it will increase by 2.5, all right? Putting aside new growth. Whatever our levy is now, that can go up 2.5. The assessment will reallocate that amongst the citizens. Some properties will be increased. In other words, if the overall was to bring the bring the property values down, right, then the tax rates are gonna have to increase.
That's correct.
There's no way. Now, if the properties were to go, for anybody to go, if they all had gone up, the rate would have come down, right? Because the levy, and you have to remember, there's a tax limit, it's a tax levy. The levy is limited by 2.5, and it's divvied up amongst everybody who paid the previous year, if that's the way to put it. It was called same-store sales, it's the same house taxing.
I understand.
All right,
Thank you.
the assessment will modify that. And it could go either way. I mean, everybody, if the total town comes down, that does not mean that every citizen will come down. There may be individuals who may see increases.
If I may, two
Sure.
quick questions through you, if I may, too. One is your comment on the 6-month audit.
Yes.
That seems to make a lot of sense to me, given the past 2 years, whether you need to do that future years. That seems to make a lot of sense. Have you got any feel as to what the additional cost will be?
For you, Mr. Chairman, it will be built into the audit budgeted item, which is $60,000, so we're gonna spend $4,000 or $5,000 sooner rather than later. So
But
it's
the total will remain roughly the same.
about 60, well, overall, the audit process costs us about 60,000. So we're really just calling in about 4,000 or 5,000 of it to get a field team out here to tell us, to say, listen, and to give us some indication how the new, recovery process is working and how the first 6 months of fiscal 2012 stacks up. And that's about $4,000 or $5,000 after talking with Mr. Sullivan.
If I may, one other quick question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One other quick question for you, if I may. Justin, I realize it's early on. How's that working out?
I can say to you that the group that has come in the first couple of weeks of their tenure have been very impressive from where I sit. I've asked questions, I've gotten answers. I may or may not know we've had some of the staff have faced some medical issues in the office, so we've worked to fill in certain areas. They're very professional, and they have acted as such per the screening process and per the interview process. Sam.
Good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Next Wednesday, will we be hearing a preliminary discussion of the audit, or are they going to be a final?
These are drafts.
These are drafts, okay.
Similar to last time.
Yes.
Similar to last time.
Yeah.
Similar to the last time. All right, and it's actually a second draft from 2010, correct?
It will be an adjusted draft, I would call it.
Adjusted draft?
Yes.
Will there be management letters? Will there be a management letter as well?
Yes.
Anyone else have any other questions? No? I think we're done.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time. Thank you for being
Oh,
here.
I had asked you for one second, meeting dates for the department heads. Do you have those or no?
We did meet, I kind of laid off the department heads this morning because the
Mhm.
budgets are due today, and some of them are working very hard to get that into us. So Barbara Marcosa, my assistant, will set up some dates in, say, early January.
You went
In early January,
early January?
as per our discussion. That's okay with the committee. And if we could do it, I mean, I thought it worked fairly well, Mr. Chairman, where we had, you know, kind of like a morning break for some lunch or whatever, run some errands, come back in. I think we finished up about 3 o'clock, between like 1 and 3 o'clock. So we started at, say, 9 o'clock, and then ran up to 12, took a break from 12 to 1, and then come back in and finish up from 1 to 3 or 4. I thought that worked fairly well on the chill when we brought up when we had scheduled those.
Yeah, that would be fine. Just let us have the date as soon as you can. And your budget is, will be coming to us on the 15th, will also include your capital needs as well,
That's
correct?
correct.
The capital planning, is that a 1-year plan or a 5-year plan, or will there be a 5-year plan coming?
We're going to submit, we're reviewing what capital planning has sent to administration. We'll be submitting a document that will be a 5-year. In my budget, will be the first year of that plan.
Yes, and I understand that they both will be coming,
Yes.
okay?
And I know,
It's a little early, I understand in some ways, but my understanding according to the charter is that the presentation will, well, we have pretty much settled to be last year's presentation on the initial pass, right? We'll have several years with information, use the same format.
that's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
We-
And will we have an estimate for the annual year, this current year? Or what are you gonna present for the year 2012?
In fiscal 2012 will be the first year of recommendations for capital.
Oh, I understand that. I'm going back to the budget itself now, I'm sorry, the expense budget. All right, what numbers will you show for this year? In the past, you gave us like a year-to-date that was not very useful to us. All right, and really the question that we have is, do we have any estimate towards what the final numbers for this current year will be to compare to your new budget?
I'll have to check on that, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Sorry, I don't.
Take a quick look at the chart, it gives you the final format, all right, if you would, and then let me know if it's doable.
Well, let me tell you what I intend to do, Mr. Chairman, because I know this has been bandied about for some time and whatever, time and probably eternity. I'm gonna run my budget by town council, who's gonna review it with me, with the chart. So if it's a column off or a heading or something like that, we'll let town council tell me what they think.
Okay,
And we'll give you, what they give me, I'll give to you,
that sounds fair.
okay? Great.
My God, it's using the rule book. That sounds good.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I like that, you know me, I'm a stickler for rules.
Sounds like Bobby Valentine.
Mr. Goodell, did you have something? Okay, I forgot, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, I was going to expand what he was talking about with the capital plan on my report as a liaison.
Okay. Good. Moving on to the next item, the 2013 budget. And I put on here meeting dates. And there are some key dates. I have received a, let's see. I have received from the superintendent of schools an invitation to attend an all-day budget review at the Wareham Middle School Library beginning at 8:30 on Tuesday, December 20th. And it will run until 4 p.m.
December
Okay,
20th.
December 20th, from 8:30 to 4 p.m. I would appreciate it if you'd let me know if you're going to be able to make that meeting, and if so, how much. Because usually what happens is we go break for lunch.
I intended to make a release.
All right, well, just
I'll send you an email.
everybody drop me an email and let me know if you're gonna come, and if you're only gonna come for part of the day, would you let me know that as well? All right, and I would definitely encourage you, the
Yes.
real detail at the school levels is in the morning. The
Yeah.
afternoon tends to be the administration, so if you have a particular interest, you can keep that in mind if your time is limited. And it is basically, the principals come in, they do a fabulous job. And the next day, I also have an invitation from him. The members of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee are invited to attend the school department's annual budget public hearing. The public hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, January 18th, 2012 at 7 p.m. By charter, we're required to be there. All right, we post accordingly.
It's a Wednesday,
We
January
have,
18th.
we have a meeting on the 18th.
Wednesday, January 18th
At what time?
at 7 p.m.
Well, we have a meeting that night, though.
Well, I've included all dates that I need for.
Oh, I'm sorry,
And this
okay.
is a mandatory meeting for us, and we have to.
Okay.
We have to be at that.
And where is that one?
This one is at the middle school,
Oh, the 18th one is this middle school as well?
Wareham Middle School Auditorium.
Okay.
Yes, part of the reason why it's that, I know that is there, is because they can televise it. The cameras and everything.
And the one on the 20th is at middle school also.
Yes.
Yeah, that's usually.
That's at the
Okay.
middle school library.
Library,
That's on Tuesday. I also received the Mass Municipal Association's annual meeting and trade show is January 20 and 21st. If you have an interest in going, I wish you'd get in touch with me. We'll have to figure out, I know the fees are $140 for a member. I don't know what the past practice has been as far as the fees, whether people take them up,
We usually
pay for them, or,
We usually pay ourselves.
yeah, I was gonna say that's been in the past. Mr. Trudell?
We may usually pay for them, but you do have money in your budget. I know we hesitate to spend our budget money trying to hedge it, but you do have money in the budget for whatever purposes we choose to use it for.
Usually is used to print the warrants,
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
right?
I understand that.
Yeah.
You know, and
I'm just making a point. I'm not
price
advocating.
those keep going up, and you go, well, I don't wanna overspend, you know? Instead of going to the next item.
Why,
All
I
right, but
never
let me-
understood why that was part of our budget anyway. I mean, realistically, it should be in the town meeting budget. Shouldn't it?
It never has been.
Never has been.
No, exactly. It should- it
I
should
will
be
discuss it, there's some other people who would like for us, our members, to go to this type of event, and I will discuss with them if their particular or departments can pick up some of the cost of this. All right, depends upon how you want to go. Again, drop me a line as soon as you can, let me know who's
the
going.
20th and the
It is,
21st?
it's the 20th and 21st, which I believe is a Friday and
Friday and
Saturday.
Saturday.
All right,
It really is a good, it really is a good
yes,
day.
I've heard rave
Very,
reviews
very
about it,
good.
and usually, with the keynote speaker, et cetera. I'll send you more information on it. I have some
Okay.
that came out as to who the keynote speakers will be and stuff
Can I
like
see that folder, Frank, please?
that. So,
Thank you.
I'll put it over here, this goes over here. So everyone knows, the question came up as far as the accounting firm is concerned. All right, year to date, we have spent, when I say year to date through the end of September, $300, which was done, our dues to the mass
God bless.
financial committees. All right, other than that, we have also, we did print the warrant. That bill has not come in and been paid yet, but what's most important is I received a package, you can pass this around, I need it back. This package came from our consultant accountants. It's the months of July, August, and September, what we spent. There's a form that I have to submit that says this is or is not correct. And they'll adjust it, and I think it's due by the 5th, by no later than the 16th of December. But they have actually formalized, I'm sorry, they have formalized the review, which I think is fantastic. That's absolutely great. All right, so that's one of those small steps, it's a great little step forward. Because the budget is coming on December 15th, I had scheduled a meeting. I have not scheduled any meetings until the 4th. The question comes up, do we or don't we want a question, okay, do we or don't we want the meeting on the 28th,
December?
right, to start the process? Again, especially when he's saying that you probably will meet with department heads early in January.
A lot of people are going to be on vacation that week. That's Christmas week, till Thanksgiving, I mean, not Thanksgiving, hello, New Year's.
One of those holidays. It's a holiday.
You know, we took a long Thanksgiving, but I'm asking, everybody's very quiet now, it's like, is he gonna tell us we have to meet or not? I want some input on this.
I'm available on the 28th.
Well, I'm going to be
I
up.
think Mr. Chairman, you have to say what you feel is necessary for the committee.
Anyone else?
I can tell you that my daughter's coming in from Tennessee, so I would, no offense to all you people who are lovely, lovely people, but I think I'd like to spend as much time as I can with her. Just don't get to see her very often.
Renee?
If there's
I
no,
believe that I'm available, so
Right.
it's up to you.
Tom?
It's too far away from me, I'll probably be here. I
No,
put
I
my
understand,
days
yeah.
a week at a time,
I'm
maybe. I don't know,
saying,
it's
if
too
there's
far
snow
away.
up in Bartlett, I'll be up in the snow
All right.
that week.
And Bonnie?
Well, I'd go to the snow with Donna if I could, but
You can, honey. You go.
All right. I would like to see, we're going to receive the budget on the 15th. It is supposed to be much better than we've seen in the past, all right? And it's supposed to include a capital plan with a lot more detail to it than we've probably seen before, all right? We're going to receive that next week, the day after we meet, which is the 14th, where we're having a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. I would like us to take an honest look at that between the 15th and maybe the 23rd or so. Right, and if we need to post for a meeting, I can post for it. Right, if it looks like it can carry over, and also I will hopefully have the data so we're going to meet with the department heads. So I'm not going to set a date tonight of the 28th. However, I really am going to reserve the fact that I may need to have some members of the committee get together at least so we can sort of plan ahead what we're going to do. I would like to go to the department heads meetings with some questions prepared ahead of time. All right, where we can say, you know, we want to know more about the payroll, or we want to know more about certain line item expenses, et cetera. If it turns out that the meeting is the first or second week, that could be very difficult if we haven't sort of at least looked and organized ourselves on the 28th.
This is my first budget process, so I guess what I'm asking is, what exactly, are we gonna receive this electronically from you on the 15th? Or is there someone's gonna deliver it to, I mean, how are we gonna get a hold of
you're
it?
in a book. You're gonna
It's
get
going to be a
You're
book.
in a book about that big.
Right, we may have to pick it up. What'll probably happen is you'll get an electronic note from me that says, stop by the town hall and pick it up.
Okay, that, I'm just,
All right, and it is generally a notebook, and it has a lot of line item detail to it.
that ties to the,
That is supposed to tie to the front pages. We've had problems with that in
Supposed
the
to.
past,
I like that.
but yes, we've had problems with that in the past, but I have been assured several times over that it will not be issued unless those numbers tie. They claim they
Mine was
have
on the
less.
bathroom floor for months, I read it every day.
All right, other than that, and the dates that we have set out, I think we absolutely have to meet on the 4th and on the 11th
Of January?
of January. And then we could look on, you know, the 18th, we might push back a week, but I think that we have to meet the first 2 weeks of January. And then obviously we'll have another date. If we meet with the department heads the 3rd week, I think that would be great. I mean, we could finish up in January on the 4th week. That is going to be a very busy month, I think, for us. And notice I took it much lighter in February, much lighter in March, because I like to get it done up front as much as possible. Yes, we're going to hear a lot of dragging of feet on the state revenues. I know that the school department is planning on doing pretty much 2 budgets, and the comment that was made to me. Yeah, there's always the budget they would like, but they're also going to take it from the point of, we expect these reductions, if we receive additional monies, these are the programs, et cetera, that will recover. It's quite a change for them, but it's the right way to go. And hopefully they'll do it that way, and I'll stay in touch with them and make sure. I'd like to see the town do the same thing, instead of us coming in and saying, oh yeah, we got this wonderful budget out here, oops, the state didn't give us 300, we're gonna try at the last minute struggle to figure out where it's being. I'd rather see a base budget and then say, okay, you get extra money and keep adding back. The other question is definitely important, have you seen this yet? Is we're gonna want a little free cash.
What's that?
We're gonna want a little free cash, and I'll push hard for that. Because that would affect the capital plan very significantly. Hopefully we'll hear that next week as to what they might think it would be. I was a little surprised to hear that we're getting the audit next week. That had never been said to me before, that we're receiving even a preliminary. This is the first that I've heard of it. I apologize, it's not that I've been keeping anything from you, it's the first I heard of it.
Gosh.
sure, whatever you say.
Yeah, I know. Whatever I say. Especially since I do so many other things without telling you, right? One of the things that I think is going to be really important is we have liaison assignments with the exception of the Council on Aging and also on the IT. I will pick up the IT. I'll probably also pick up the Council on Aging.
Sure you don't want
All
me to
right.
pick that up?
I may ask a whole number of questions from you. All right. I would hope that the liaisons, that you'll talk to your department heads. You can't really request reports from them or anything, but you can start to get a feel for it. And when we meet with them, I would hope that in many ways that you would be a great advocate of theirs and be able to come back and on some of the, if they fail to make a point or something that they maybe really is important, that you would help them through the process of saying, well, don't forget to tell, mention this to the members, et cetera. Either save, either an unusual expense, whatever it may be.
And when are we meeting with the department heads?
Well, that's the date he's gonna give us. That's when the whole committee would meet. I would hope that you would meet with whoever you are liaison with ahead of time to sit and say, okay, you're gonna be coming in, what are you gonna tell the people? All right, and we're gonna tell the committee members, well, they'll probably ask you about this, or they'll ask you about that. It'll make it far more efficient for them and us, and I think it'll make them a lot more comfortable. It's worked whenever I've done it before in that type of situation. And not only that, but if anything comes up, you may be able to tip the rest of us off and say, hey, Sam's gonna have to do a lot of talking. So that's what I'm looking to hope that the liaisons will do. Okay, not that you'll speak for them, and remember, as I said, you really can't ask them for reports ahead of time. But you can discuss things, like, hey, what happened on your payroll, what happened, what's your most important capital items, so just a general conversation with them. Okay? Other questions on that? Communications? There's 3 different items on the communications. Going through this budget process, there's a lot of sensitivity to what's going on. And a lot of people keep looking for us to do things that, we can demand any item that we want. The only problem is we can't do anything with it. Once we have it, we can look at it, we can make faces at it, et cetera, but we have no authority to do anything about it. So I would ask you to be very careful in dealing with the public when you're asked questions. Remember, whether you say it's my personal opinion or not, you're still a member of the Finance Committee. It's very, very easy sometimes to overlook some things too. You generally, like signature blocks, all right, that result in people misinterpreting things. So we have to be very careful. I probably am getting a great reputation in town for being a snob because I won't talk to anybody about anything. All right? It's just not, it's not worth it. I'm just getting to the point where I don't want to talk to even the town administrator and the superintendent at times. It gets me in a lot of trouble. Please be careful in this whole process because everybody wants to know what's happening. And even with the audit, be very, very careful with what you say. Make sure that the person that you are talking to is knowledgeable about what you are saying, etc. I would encourage you to try to avoid it and speak through the committee. If we hear, but come back also to the committee and say, look, I'm hearing a lot of questions about this item or that item. And if nothing else, we can rely on the fact that we are televised. All our meetings are televised, and we could raise the issue and address it, and hopefully that it would be seen on television. One of the things that has come up, Mr. White has suggested that there are times when we do not meet, or if there's issues that are extremely important, our conversations are recorded, and our meetings can get long, especially when we go through the entire budget process. But if we have a topic that comes up that's critically important, maybe we could work with the station to have it replayed, just that segment, right? And he's suggesting a lead-in where we say, okay, we know this is an important topic. The suggestion was maybe the chairman could do it. I've been thinking about that, and I think maybe it would be absolutely great if we did this, where we said, okay, we're going to talk about police cruisers. And we talked about them, and here's what our conversation was, and our liaison to the police department, Mr. Goodell, would introduce that segment. Now, these are
I'll be absent that meeting, but
you'll be absent.
it's okay.
I'm sorry about that. Won't make any difference. All right. So the intent would be is just that if we had anybody introduce it, would be whoever our liaison is would say, okay, we're going to replay this particular segment for you. Right? This is not a matter of after the segment making any kind of a comment or anything. I'm discouraging that totally. What I'm saying is that we go and we say, okay, we know this is an issue, this relates to article such and such, we talked on such and such a date for X amount, we're replaying this for your edification. Okay, and then try to work with, like, various ways information gets out in town to people to say, hey, watch that particular date so they can see our conversation. I think it also is a great opportunity. I know camera can be scary sometimes, that's why it's always at my back. All right, but the most important thing is people also get to know us that way as well. And I think that's important, and I think it would help us a great deal as a community to go to town meeting and, being recognized. Hands are up all over the place. Donna, yours is up first.
I have a couple of questions. Who is the liaison for inspectional services?
Don?
John?
I know I'm planning and inspectional services.
Yes.
Have you, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Through the chair. Have you sat and talked to what's going on or what's going down over there?
Well, Miss Ethier, I have.
No. He's the Board of Health.
Oh.
Miles.
Yeah, with Miles. So what's going on over there?
Yeah.
Well, last day asked me to bring up was the how they get the permits. I brought it up a couple weeks ago. They were concerned about the issuance of permits. That they're telling people that they can work off of a receipt rather than get the hard copy of the permit out. Well, I guess that's really not law, and that people can get in trouble. And that was the biggest issue they were having, that they didn't have enough manpower, or secretary power, whatever kind of power you want to call, to get the hard copy permits out. Some of them are 2 weeks behind them. So say you go to get a permit for your roof, they're giving you a receipt for that permit and telling you to go do the roof. The roof's done before the permit's printed.
I know that.
And that seems to be their biggest issue right at the moment. As far as what Miles is doing,
No, about all the controversy about Miles.
you know me.
That's
sorry,
not
I'm
part of our
political.
liaison.
Yeah, I don't get
But
I'm
you know
not a
something?
political person.
I think that if people, there's been so much negative stuff coming out that people have been hearing, and if they actually took the time and went down and spoke to the individuals involved and got the real facts, it would be a whole different ballgame. And I just, for the life of me, don't,
I would tend to agree with you, but I don't know that that's our particular job.
Yeah,
Our job is really to help the department heads through the budgeting process and sticking to their budgets. The rest of it becomes stuff that's really outside of the scope of this committee. All right. Now, I also agree, because I participated in a number of things so far, that at times you can help facilitate some things. But it has to.
a lot if
But that does not mean that we're out as the point man, as the press
No,
person.
no, it's just that
I'm just
I-
saying, it's like, if we really need, let's say, Miles and someone else to get together from another committee or something, maybe we can help make that happen. All right? But beyond that, no, we shouldn't really be out trying to explain anything or to come back and say they exist because of these reasons.
Well, it's just the point of getting the facts instead of listening to hearsay, and I guess I learned a valuable lesson by sitting down and speaking with the man and looking at his actual credentials. I had the opportunity to work with him on several projects and that, and I just think it's too bad that there wasn't a way to bring out the positive stuff instead of the negative stuff.
Another way for stuff like that to come out, and I know it has been mentioned to the town administrator before, is to get more of his department heads out there on his his weekly report, et cetera, or find some way to allow them to be in front of the public. I think some of it has occurred at the selectmen's meetings, et cetera. It just takes time. It takes time. And the other question is, everybody has different questions. You try to cover those things as best you can. So I hear. Don, I'm sorry.
Just to what she says, you know me, I'm not political, so I
No,
don't even listen to that
I'm not
stuff.
either.
Okay, but I don't even
Yeah.
want to even talk about it. That's not why I'm there.
I think she's saying that
Yeah.
she probably would like to see more come out
I would
as
like
far
to
as his
see-
credentials. But it's not our,
You're
but it's not
negative.
our.
I don't bother with that.
just
But
facts.
to say something else that
No, I know, but it's not,
to say something you said earlier, Frank, though, through you to everybody. You said, watch what you say and do that, but, freedom of speech is something that, we all have. And, I know that you say that we're part of the committee, but
We're still individuals.
That's right.
I hear
And
that,
sometimes I got a big mouth.
I hear that.
And I'm sorry, but I can't say, all right, but I can't just, sometimes I disagree with the committee. I'm not gonna throw the committee under the bus or anything, I wouldn't do that to anybody, but sometimes I speak my piece, and maybe it's wrong, but it's not always the committee's outlook. It's not that I'm dissing the committee, maybe I don't know. That's what I'm trying to, I'm still free to,
I understand that,
Okay,
and I
all
understand,
right.
as I
All right.
said, you've heard me say it
Understand.
before, when we signed on to the committee, we sort of agreed to some other rules as well. All right, and it's
All right.
like, if you had a business contract that said, well, we can only enter into this contract if you sign a confidentiality agreement, well, okay, sit there, you want the money bad enough, you're gonna sign away your freedom to speak. All right, I'm not gonna talk about it, because if I do, it's gonna cost me money. We do it many times, many different times we do that type of thing.
all right.
All right, and the only thing I'm saying is, all it does in the end, I'm sorry, but what it does in the end, is rather than us discussing problems in this room, we spill out into the public, and it causes the community to start to fracture as badly as the rest of the bodies are fracturing. And that doesn't work.
I understand that, I wouldn't do that, yeah.
If you got a gripe with me, come give it.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant by that. that's
Or
all.
even if, and.
I think we've always prided ourselves on being a non-political board.
Okay.
I think we've done a very good job of discussing things very open and very honestly, and not carrying them out into the hallway. That has been my experience with the committee. That has happened very rarely. All right, and when it has happened, most of the committee, as a majority, have stood and said, this is not right, you shouldn't be doing this.
No.
That's good.
This is what I love having next to me, so he can lead right into what I'm about to say.
Okay.
About a year and a half ago, I sat in front of this committee as an applicant. Gave my background, gave my experience. I got one question about my background, experience, or family. The rest of the questions and comments were about blogging. And I guess when I signed on with the determination that, number one, I don't know if anybody, whatever reason, I felt like I was kept off this committee at the time because of blogging. Now, I understand freedom of speech, and believe me, I used it a lot up to a certain point, but since I've been on this committee, I've bought into it, lock, stock, and barrel into the one voice when we go out to the public. And I think it's an excellent idea, because otherwise we don't appear as a committee, we appear as a group of individuals that may or may not agree, which we don't all the time, but we do tend to work it out in here. We don't work it out there on the blogs or anywhere else. So I guess if I was to blog, and believe me, I don't blog because I just really think it's more important that we talk about it in here. This is the place we discuss it. If I have a personal opinion and somebody asks me, then I'll say this is my personal opinion. But I would suggest that if anybody does blog, that they should at least have the common courtesy to say, this is my personal opinion. Because otherwise, it's tied directly to the Finance Committee. And I'll never say that I was trying to repair my reputation before I got on this committee, but I at least wanted people to understand that whatever you thought of me is probably a lot different than what I actually am. And it's important. But since our chairman has already agreed with, having something public go out, I was thinking that maybe a chairman letter once a month to the newspaper to discuss key issues would be an excellent idea. I was actually ready to make a motion to that.
You send out 2 semi-annual messages, that's just.
Well, no, but I mean,
people, I'll tell you what, I like the idea of being able to rebroadcast significant conversations that we've had with an introduction by a member tied to an article or tied to the budget, etc. All right, notification going out to the public, and having all of us participate, so that nobody thinks that it's Frankie's committee or David Trudell's committee or Donna Brock's committee. Right. So, I mean, the more I've thought about that, the more I would like to do it. It's a great temptation. It becomes simpler on me to just sit down and write a letter. It actually is simple.
Well, I agree with you.
And it's harder to get you to say, okay, I need you, Tuesday to go over and meet with somebody and to do a prelude or something else.
But not everybody watches TV.
I understand that, all right? I think if it comes out that way enough, that the other press will want to cover it. Part of the problem we have is some of our meetings, especially budget time, are 3 hours long. They're very long. And after a couple hours, we have trouble sticking with it. The
Exactly.
public just packs up and goes home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know someone that records the meetings that says, geez, you guys are boring. And we are boring, and we know that we're boring. But I don't mind being boring because we accomplish something.
It's a boring subject.
Oh, come on,
At
I've been doing it for
times.
29 years, it's exciting, admit it.
The bulk of it is very boring because it's all procedural, all right? And you got all procedural minds sitting here, all right? And that's part of the
Speak for
problem.
yourself
you know?
now, speak
I
for
mean,
yourself.
I'm sure there were some of us at some point in time have wanted to sit in front of the selectmen and had our say about a certain topic that had really nothing to do with finance committee, but it always in our best interest not to. I guess because no matter what, well, other than you.
Well, I actually was trying to speak to that point because I agree that speaking with one voice for things that are under the purview
Right.
of finance committee is probably in the best interest, but if we are also citizens of this town, and if there are issues that are not under or not being discussed here or we're not voting on, I don't see the problem with being able to speak as an individual
No,
citizen, especially if you are going to preface it and saying, this isn't tied to that position, this is my own position, this isn't discussed at a finance committee meeting, because I think that then you are limiting people who are trying to be active in the community in those areas. You're severely limiting them with what they can do, how they can participate.
That's possibly true, but the other side would be is if you're gonna speak as an individual, right? I don't know the ethics laws and everything else, the way things are written today, and every article comes to us. We have no choice in that. Whether we put out a recommendation or not, every article comes to us for our review. It just means when that article comes to us, you already stated a public opinion. You should recuse yourself. That's simple.
Okay.
Well, I'm saying,
That's simple, folks. If you have to recuse yourself on those issues, because you've already taken a public position, all right, and as an individual. And it means it's coming as a committee member, you're coming in with a publicly stated opinion, which means we can't necessarily change your mind in any way. It's difficult, you've already made a public stance, and now we may ask you as a committee member to change your stance
well,
to support the committee, and that can become very, very
I
painful.
think what I was just saying is things that are not under the purview of the finance committee.
But anything can come
Right.
in front of the town meeting as a warrant article.
And I've had to do that because of the business involvements.
Yes,
I
you
refrain
have.
from lots of stuff.
All right. David?
To Renee's comment, Marilyn Donahue, who was a member of our committee, was active in several groups. And finally, one day, she looked at me and she said, I absolutely can't say anything out there in public because no matter what I say or how I put it, I'm a member of the finance committee. And that was only an affirmation of generally the way we had tried to operate, is
Right.
we don't want to get even into discussions because anytime there's a discussion, there are three opinions. What I said, what you think I said, and what gets written. And that is the communication diffusion that goes on. You cannot win this battle. If you're gonna be on the finance committee, understand, it's a no-win situation.
Perfect example.
Larry, we were very concerned about Larry's blogging. And Larry came back a year later and he was asked, have you toned it down and have you got yourself to a position where you're not going to be out in the forefront of those things? And his answer was yes, and we trusted that answer. And I think that's an affirmation of how we operate, is that somebody says that we trust it, but we just, the interpretations out there are brutal. If you think this town is divided, just think that every time you open your mouth, there's one side that wants to hear this and one side that wants to hear that, and you're in a no-win
And
situation.
they will talk about you like dirt on one side and like a hero on the other side. And I don't think that I ever, and that was my other point, I don't think I ever said anything other than towards one person, that most of the comments I made were informative. at the very least informative. And that's what I was trying to do. And I remember at the time, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, being told by the chairman that we're not going to do it. You blog. Well, you know,
Do you see?
To be clear, that wasn't me.
yes. I didn't want to say any names.
I've never read a blog in my life. I think they're on the computer somewhere.
But Chair, do you see now, sitting here, with all the information that goes by, some of the dilemma that it creates?
Well, I guess at the time, I really didn't like you guys very much because number one, and you probably didn't like me all that well, but my personal opinion is I'm not that political myself. But I get that reputation. You go ahead and read it. I'm not political. It's been informative.
But you tried,
Give me the paddles.
you tried to do a good thing, you thought was a good thing in informing people. I have been asked, like I said today, about, I get called at home. People call me at home.
Oh, I get calls all the time, yeah.
And it has been suggested to me, you need to write on such and such a blog and get that information out to people. I can't do that because it's maybe my interpretation and my opinion, okay, of the process or whatever. And I mean, I can't force that on other people because it's going to come back to me.
That's why I don't do it now. But I will say that at the time, the only thing I ever really wanted was for this town to run correctly. You know, and after 29 years of business, maybe I'm a little anal retentive about the way I want things. We've all come to the conclusion that I might be a little anal retentive about it, but I just believe that if everybody's in this for the right reasons and doing the right things, you don't have to blog. You don't have to agree with people, but if they're doing it to the best of their ability, then you don't have that problem. And at the time, it was, you know, and also I had a conversation with a selectman that got me started and you know, basically said, I don't care what you have to say. Well, that's the last thing you want to say to me. So, but the reality is that I said on this committee, you're not going to see me blogging because I don't have any desire to do it, number one. And number two, we talk about a lot of things. And if I do go out there and say something, it is because of my past history. Certain people are going to take that as it's a lie or whatever it is. And other people are going to say, well, that's the right thing. So I don't want to put the committee in that position. We're a committee, we're a group of people, and we're supposed to be speaking with one voice, and that's what I'm trying to do now.
Doing good, too. Doing very well.
Thank you.
I would also say, Renee, that I don't think there's a member of this committee that at one time or another has not wanted to go in front of some group, right, or to write a letter to someone and state exactly how they think about something.
Oh,
I have done that, by the way.
And, you
so
know,
have I.
right, to the point of saying, you know, I think I'm going to get my car and drive down there and have my say right now, even if it means I'm going to get arrested. All right? I mean, we understand where you're coming from. It's very, very, very hard at times not to say what's on your mind. But then the problem, even like I have, is I have to say, as soon as I say something, right, 8 other people have to pay the price.
Right.
That's the problem, right there, is 8 other people have to pay the price if I say the wrong thing. Right, so that's a large, we've been through this conversation several times. Every time we get new members, we
You
go
sat at that table with me as an applicant that time. I just
Yes,
want
we
to
go
point
through
out.
the same thing. And the reason why I got elected was I said I was Larry McDonald.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not set on that, you know, I just on the communication. I don't know, what do you think about the idea of asking Bob to do some of these cuts for us and doing a prelim saying we think this is important enough that we've asked that it be televised, et cetera.
I think that's a good idea.
You cut out the boring part to get people to watch it more, absolutely.
It's like showing the highlights.
Absolutely,
It's like showing the
absolutely.
Oh,
highlights.
that's what football do.
Do we know how many people watch this?
I would say
A
after,
lot of seniors.
if they watch it as a matter of curiosity after the first couple of weeks, they're probably cured.
I would certainly.
It's out there on the blogs too because it's being ripped by someone. A friend of mine is ripping these and putting them out there on the blogs and in Wareham Week so that people can have a reference point and go to the meetings. Like I said, I get feedback and we're a boring bunch of people. And then I also say it's Larry the Giant and everyone else that sits at the table, which hurts my feelings.
So if you agree, I'll try to convince Mr. White to set
Pick up
something
the
up. We'll try to come
Okay.
back with something a little more formal. All right, and then we'll try a couple and see how it works.
Everybody coffee, is that it? Okay.
Well, I don't think we have to worry about being nervous in front of the camera because, you know, if both people were watching, you know, don't like you, you probably will never hear about it, so.
One's my wife. So.
All right, then I move on to the next thing, liaison reports, school committee?
Yeah, I, first of all, have to apologize because I went to a meeting last month, which was the preliminary meeting on the budget. And I was handed reports that I was, copies of the last report, which I was told to hand out to the finance committee, which I promptly left at home. But I am going to ask them, as the chairman has asked me to do, to transmit that electronically from now on, so it will get to everybody that way. You know, I must say that in this personal thought that listening to the school committee and how they were organizing for the budget, I was struck that they were doing it not only quite logically, but also quite professionally. What the instructions were to each of the principals involved was to come up with a budget with a zero increase from last year, except where there was, they could demonstrate that there was a opportunity for a large improvement in the education system. And then they could try and justify an increase on that basis, which I think makes sense, because if you just say a zero increase, which maybe is the way you're gonna have to end up overall, but if you have no increases anywhere in your budget, you pretty well stop any chance for any improvement in the system, so you have to have a little bit of flexibility. I think I did not hear comments of two budgets, but I think that in effect it'll come down to that, because in effect you will find that the first budget will be what the principals are proposing for each of their schools, which is, I'm sure each one will have projects which will cause increases in the budget, so you'll see an increased budget, and at some point people are going to have to say, yeah, but that's not going to fly, so we're going to bring it back down again. Of course, we don't know where their figure is going to end up having to be, but certainly I think that overall, if you start off with the idea that you're not going to get any increases, that's certainly a logical starting. But I think they're going about it in what seems to be a logical way, and obviously no figures yet, but I will certainly be reporting to you as we go along.
Good. Any questions? Capital planning.
Mr. Chairman, I have some information on capital planning. You want to introduce this under new business? I'll touch lightly on it, and that's all I will touch on.
All right, we've already been informed tonight that there will be an increase.
Okay, so then I can touch on it.
16%?
Pardon?
16%?
I'll touch on the new business if that's okay with you.
Yes, that would be better.
Fine, thank you. The capital planning, we met yesterday, and our next meeting is on the 15th at 9:30 in the cafeteria at the town hall. Several issues came up. The capital planning plan has to go in. We got it to the town administrator in time for the 15th, when he had to submit it. But we recommended that the capital plan, as a 5-year plan, as submitted, go over to the Board of Selectmen as is, because there's a couple things that have to happen. One, capital planning, this will be our first try at having to put a priority by year to what we think the project should be ranked at. And two, we don't know what we have for money. And three, at some point, I'm sure the town administrator is a little faster on his feet than we are in terms of how to do the financing and everything else. But capital planning has a lot more work to do on that 5-year plan at this point. So he's submitting what we put in as a 5-year spreadsheet, but we are going to prioritize that on the 15th.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
To you, Mr. Chairman, is the administration going to publish it the way the capital planning committee does? Are they going to publish their own?
The administration will publish, just as he did last year, a capital planning plan that goes to the Board of Selectmen as how he sees it. That is his responsibility. We've had discussions that things would probably run smoother at town meeting if the capital planning committee, the administration, and the Board of Selectmen we're all on the same sheet of music going into town meeting. Does that answer your question, Don?
What I'm getting from what you're saying is all this professional hard work that the capital planning board is doing and preparing may or may not get on the warrant. It may be interpreted differently by the administration, and that concerns me. And does the charter state who gets the right to put it there?
Yes, it does. It does. It's the town administrator.
Town administrator.
Right. But he puts his capital.
The capital planning committee does, are they going to publish their own?
The administration will publish, just as he did last year, a capital planning plan that goes to the Board of Selectmen as how he sees it. That is his responsibility. We've had discussions that things would probably run smoother at town meeting if the capital planning committee, the administration, and the Board of Selectmen we're all on the same sheet of music going into town meeting. Does that answer your question, Don?
What I'm getting from what you're saying is all this professional hard work that the capital planning board is doing and preparing may or may not get on the warrant. It may be interpreted differently by the administration, and that concerns me. And does the charter state who gets the right to put it there?
Yes, it does. It does. It's the town administrator.
Town administrator.
Right. But he puts his capital planning budget together, et cetera, in conjunction with the capital planning committee, who, by the way, makes the recommendation on the financing side to the town meeting. All right, so do they have direct influence? No. Do they have some influence? Yes. Because it's really, they're the ones who come by and say, leasing, borrowing, free cash, et cetera. Although the decision is finally up to the town administrator, all right, their recommendation can be made known, so therefore they do have influence.
I would suggest, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
and Mr. Trudell, that maybe if we're not on the same page, that we have a separate flyer that goes out at the meeting. That way the people can see what we're proposing and what, and hopefully we'll all be proposing the same thing. But I'm just saying, you know, you guys were all taken back by what appeared on the warrant. It wasn't what you, it was my understanding it wasn't what you guys had recommended.
Careful with your "we," because it's not the finance committee, it's capital planning.
That's what I'm saying, the plan, that's what I meant, the capital planning.
Right.
It was not the capital planning's, am I correct in that assumption?
That would be correct.
Okay.
There was some gastrointestinal distress caused by that issue. And we are very careful to remember that he is the ultimate authority in capital planning according to the charter. But we too feel that it should be a team. And I think that I can speak for the chairman that we're trying our best to make it a team effort.
Well, I'm just suggesting, Mr. Chairman, that it wouldn't hurt for us to have a separate capital planning report at the beginning.
The town administrator started that this last
I
week.
believe that the chairman of the capital planning did have a statement out at town meeting and clearly stated capital planning's position.
Okay.
I also recall that during town meeting, when the items came up on capital items, she did ask the capital planning committee chairman what their position was. Granted, we only had one real item that made it, but she did make a point, and some people even objected a little bit, saying, well, why is she asking them? Well, because they're on the financing side.
Okay.
So she had started, and I think if we had gone further, we would have seen a lot more of that. David, I'm sorry?
I have in my possession some documents that have been issued regarding the computer virtualization project, but since we have not officially broached it, it was mentioned at the capital planning meeting, but was not officially broached. I am not at this point prepared to discuss the computer virtualization system until capital planning discusses it, and then as far as I'm concerned, I will provide copies to the FinCom. That's where I'm coming on the computer project. There has been some questions regarding the use of some graduate students to study various aspects of the school bus issue. We had a meeting in which we were not able to find a quorum, and we were asked if we would coordinate that project, and since it was not enough to make a quorum for a meeting, the point was made that there was no sense of bringing in graduate students and doing a study unless you could get the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and the finance committee to agree that they were going to live with what this study came up with. We would get the study, we would present it, but they would have to be able to say, yes, I'm going to be able to accept this study. There was a meeting on, I believe, the 18th of November. 4 people in attendance, they agreed to go ahead. But we could not get agreement out of one of the parties. And therefore, capital planning is not going to go ahead and bring in graduate students to do a study, issue a report that's not going to be accepted on the front end. Now, we had a discussion on school buses. It was pointed out to me that we had been some 2.5 years since another individual and I have been looking at this school bus issue. We've rode hard and we've maintained our same position in the current. We have not made any progress. There were 5 people at the meeting. It was the town administrator, Chairman Slavin, Mary Jane Driscoll, who's the former director of the school bus, myself. In the audience, we have the chairman of the finance committee and Selectman Begley. Since we hadn't made any progress and none of our votes carry any weight, I made a motion that we take and ask the town administrator to issue a check for $1.6 million on the 1st of July 2012 to the school department, since they can run the school bus system for $1.497 million, that we just give them a check for $1.6 million and say, go to it. Put the money where their claim is and let them prove it. Because we're making no progress. This is a no-win situation. Now, we passed that with Mary Jane abstaining. So it was 4-0-0. It evidently was not mentioned at the Board of Selectmen's meeting last night. Though I understand there was multiple opportunities to do so.
You left out one point, that your 1.6 included the procurement either by lease or purchase of all equipment,
The entire shebang.
the entire shebang.
That's what,
You say you can do it? We'll do it.
That's what they passed.
Okay.
you don't want to get me started on
I
this.
touched on the computer project, I touched on school buses.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, to Dave, you have to read the article in the weekly that's out tonight about what you just said. Not pretty. I just wanted you to read it. I know, I'm just telling you.
Weekly what?
The newspaper. It comes out on Thursday, but it's out tonight. There's an article in it about what you just said. That's all I'm saying.
To respond to that,
Yes.
I have a acquaintance who's a school bus driver. We won't deal with gender. We'll just say, this person's a school bus driver. And the bodies are rotting out.
No,
The maintenance people are going,
but you guys are, capital planning was thrown under the bus in the newspaper article. I'm just telling you what I read. Sit there, read it. That's all. Take it for what it's worth.
but the good thing is,
Yeah.
when you're thrown on this bus,
Yeah.
it'll reverse gear so you can come back and make sure they really got you.
Okay, guys, just read it. Mr. Slater, you read it.
All right,
I'm just telling you.
Mr. Gregg?
I'd just like to express
Be in
an
the box,
opinion on this, and that is that I find it very difficult to vote on any portion of the school buses, say to buy one bus or to buy 10 buses or anything else, without having some plan on which you're gonna finance the whole thing. And I won't say I'd never do anything, because you may find yourself forced immediately to do just the opposite, but my good sense and good judgment says that it doesn't make any sense for an organization to spend money in partial segments without having some plan on how you're gonna run it. And I don't know how the finance committee can say this, but I would love to propose on this subject that they say, hey, look, you've gotta come up with some overall plan. And I don't know how we can say that as loud and clear as we can, but I sure as the devil would like to.
You want to send the person with the biggest mouth. Well, there's a toss-up here, but
Right, before we go any further on this thing too, as well, the total record is not clear. It depends on who you're listening to and what their interpretation is at any given point. All right, as far as this committee of 5 that was concerned or whatever happened, all right, and I advised you before that I represented the finance committee. There was a motion that was put together that was to be presented to the Board of Selectmen and to the school committee, which proposed that the capital planning be asked to use graduate students to come up with a financial study, and it went to the capital planning because they're responsible, as I said earlier, for the financial decisions as how to finance it, all right? So the request was to them by the school committee and by the Board of Selectmen through a motion. Supposedly what was supposed to happen is the motion was to be passed basically unamended, because that's the only way. They don't meet in the same room, you can't go back and forth, it was time limited, etc. At no point was the finance committee part of the voting process in any way. I went there, as I said before, to help facilitate this, and the thing was, when the final presentation was made, that we would be there to hear the facts firsthand, no secondhand information, interpretations, or whatever. And it was agreed that we should continue, or I should continue as part of that process, whatever it may be, to get to that point where a presentation was made. No decisions would ever come out of that study. All there would be is, here's three alternatives, here's three sets of numbers, etc. The Board of Selectmen met and decided that they needed to amend. There was an inadequate amount of time to get those amendments to the school committee, all right, and they had to make a decision because they already had a bid out on some leasing. What basically happened was the superintendent came back and told them, there's been an amended motion for coming from the Board of Selectmen. They said, we can't vote on what we can't see. That's strange, it's like trying to vote for buses when we don't know what the plan is. So they said, we can't do it. We can't vote tonight. And we also have the problem that we did put the bid out and we're supposed to let people know. So they postponed for 60 days. They requested from the various bus companies 60 days to give them an answer on whether or not the buses would be leased by whoever. Okay? And that's really important to understand. So they originally were going to try to move on this, but since it was amended, they couldn't. Now we're running through a problem with holiday and everything. How do you get everybody together in time to go to Bridgewater State, etc., and say, we would like this study, especially when they're going into finals and we'll be setting up for the next semester and all this. We were in a very, very tight time frame. It became impossible to do.
Yep.
It was the motion was a request to capital planning that they go to one of the universities and see if this could be set up. When the time ran out, there was no way that Alan Slavin or the capital planning committee in any way could honor that request. The time had passed. So then we were immediately back to square one. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what happened. But nobody ever made any agreements up front. Nobody ever said anyone had a right to lease, buy, or do anything. It was, we have to do something. And the first statements that came out, which was very appropriate, one of the parties said, we have to get the numbers off the table. And then once those are off the table, we can deal with all the other issues. Okay, how are we going to, how's it going to be financed? Who's going to make the decision? Who's going to make the actual procurement? Who's going to run the system? There's pluses and minuses, all that. But let's get the finance off the table. We ran out of time. We ran out of time because what was presented to each body was different. In the end, it was different. And it was a written motion that was presented there. And our goal was, and I made it very clear, that after they made all their decisions, they would come to us before they went to the town meeting and said, here's what we want to do. And at that point, with all the information we had from having attended the meetings, and the information coming from capital planning, coming from the school department, coming from the administration, we would go through the process of our deliberation and make our recommendation. That's been our position all along. That's the position I've been stating. Mr.
I
McDonald.
think we had that, Bob's first thing, thank you for fielding that, is that I believe you went there as a facilitator, not as a member, which you just stated. The biggest problem I have with this is it's a fairly simple process if you don't have people posturing. And you got people over here posturing, and you got people over here, and I'm not sure why, because the only people that are getting whacked in the head are the children. And my daughter being one of them. But that's posturing going on between the selectmen and the school board. And I don't get it because nobody asked, and I believe we had a discussion about this. There was never a preconceived notion. Now granted, the school keeps referencing, I believe, a 10-year-old plan they had for purchasing buses. And these people have had RFPs or bids out for leasing buses. Well, and I'm glad for both of them, but they haven't even addressed the issue, which is how do you proceed? What kind of plan do you need in place? How do you replace the buses? Before you even get into the finance methodology for this, where is that plan? So I thought it was fairly simple. They would sit down and say, we're not going to lease, we're not going to purchase, we're just going to figure out the financial implications of what's going on and how we address it. Sounds simple enough, but then you had posturing and then you had posturing. So if you want to solve it, you either put gum on their nose and send them to the corner, or you just tell them, grow up. Our children are at stake, and we need to fix this. These buses either need to be purchased or leased. It doesn't really matter at this point, but let's figure out what it's gonna entail over a long-term process. Not come back to me and say, well, we just lost a bus, we need to lease a bus now. You don't have to do that if everybody tries to work together. Again, we go back to the original point, which I think was put your little egos outside the door, everybody work together. And I think there are members that want to do that, but there are other members that want to control the process.
All right, let's not posture on this, okay?
I'm not
I made some
posturing.
very, very extremely valid points, but I don't want it to be interpreted and get this involved.
No, I said it, so it'll probably be interpreted that
She
way.
hasn't had a chance to speak yet, so.
I just wanted to just say really quickly that, me and Dave can go back to his report, and that is, we're about to tackle the next budget, okay? The problem hasn't been solved,
Nope.
okay?
You're right.
And it's in our next budget. And I personally, not that good, I'm not going to write them a $1.6 million blank check, because we've been doing that for 5 to 6 years now, and it hasn't been solved, okay?
Oh, it's a different check. But it's a different check.
I don't care.
Check includes equipment,
Oh.
which the checks previously did not include equipment that
Well,
we knew
well,
of. That we knew of.
as I said, without a plan, a real plan of action as to how they're gonna go forward in years to come, I don't see myself approving non-net school spending in the next budget.
Okay, posture, go ahead.
I don't feel so bad.
My previous comments were not meant to be aimed at what's happened in the past or anything of that sort. We are where we are at the moment, which is going nowhere, as far as I know, on this subject. And I just would like to have the Finance Committee do everything that it could to at least get something rolling, to get to a plan. And I would agree the first thing that would seem logical would be to try and get agreement on the figures. That certainly seems like a logical starting point.
Yeah.
And I don't know what can be done. I know that the chairman has great influence in this town, so I would believe that he might be able to at least try and get something resolved. But I think, it's extremely important, and I don't think, while it's not our immediate decision or anything else, I can't believe that the Finance Committee doesn't have a responsibility in as major an area as this is, and is to the town, is to the school, is to all of the citizens of the town. And I think we should be very strong in pushing for a resolution and a plan in this area.
Oh, I think we're being strong. Capital planning has been very strong. All right?
Well,
And we're chipping away at the wall, and I will have to say that the attempt to bring people together to even go for the study with the master's candidates was an indication that chips are being made. It was even though it failed, it was light years of progress from where we were a year ago.
But
at least we had people that were willing to sit down in the room and say, we have to come up with a plan and find a solution. We're here for a solution. That was a huge, huge, huge event. All right. Unfortunately, it's not. Some people say we're not transparent enough about it, but sometimes it's hard to do those things. People have to sit in the room and dedicate themselves to the solution, and that started. That process has started. This was a bad bump. This was a severe bump, and you're right. We're still up against the wall. We're still up against time, but Sam, we are moving, and I don't think there's any way to put any more pressure than is being put right now. And it's a tremendous amount of pressure, and it's coming from all sides. It's coming from the school side. It's coming from the admin side. It's coming from the FinCom. It's coming from capital. It's coming from everybody. Something has to happen, and it has to happen pretty soon. All right? And I'm saying we agree with you. I'm the same way. Look, I'm not going to approve a whole bunch of buses other than I say, hey, I would approve emergencies so that I wouldn't have to worry about paying excessive rentals, etc. all right? But the emergencies, in my mind, were part of the plan. How do we get to the plan? To where we're actually into setting up and doing, maintenance and, these programs, somebody runs it or whatever. All right, so we're all in agreement. I mean, it's just, I think we're just shaving words quite a bit, but we're all in agreement. And I don't think this committee's gonna commit to anything that's gonna spend town money, that's gonna propagate what's gone on in the past, because it's not working. David?
Can I make one more comment, then I'll move on to the library?
Yes.
Capital planning has put a lot of time and effort into this. And techniques that we've used previously with bringing people together, having discussions that have worked, have come to naught. It is very frustrating. We put everything we've got into it. When somebody comes to us and says, will you do this? The committee is more than willing to work with the people. And to his point, a severe bump, yeah. Moving on, library. I think I clued you in for a couple copies of some stuff.
Oh, he sent me some copies as well.
We didn't get our inputs for the 5-year plan. We have the library trustees, we have friends of the library, and we have the library director. And from previous 5-year plans, there's been no connection to what they think they need to deal with now. So the library trustees are trying to work with the maintenance director. The town administrator is trying to get the library director to understand you need to put together a 5-year plan because it's going to have to be reviewed and it has to go into the 5-year plan, and without that. So at this point, I believe the town administrator is working with the library director to try and get this project moving down so we can find out what they really want. We were told in the past that certain portions of air conditioning inside the building were critical. They needed an automated system for checking books in and out. And none of that appears. And so it's a little frustrating with that. It's just a question that eventually they're going to get the trustees and the library director are going to be able to communicate effectively and be part of the process, but right now it's very slow going.
Can I answer that? You're right. The problem was, first off, you had a change in the library director. The original 5-year plan was submitted by the previous director. And when the board, and even when I sat on the library board, there was no mention of capital. So we're not sure where and what it came from. But through my discussions, and we've gone back and forth a little bit on with the chairman of that, as well as Denise, they are trying diligently to get a 5-year plan because they have some needs that are fairly desperate, I think. And we've talked about advocating for as a liaison. I think they're really trying. I think they're running into a little problem now with getting together with, I believe it's municipal maintenance, the director of municipal maintenance. But I think their meeting is next Thursday, and I'm going to, I may be too late at that point, but I'm going to try to
Never too late.
okay, well, I'm going to try to go to that meeting and try to, because I understand the chairman is working with the director. He really is adamant about putting it together, and they were completely, what are these things? Who's an automated checkout system? Great, what do we need that for? So,
To his point, Mr. Chairman,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I know that, because the municipal maintenance director, Mark Gifford, where he can, has done some work down on the library. So there is some confusion to the process, and we're certainly trying to get him to come on board with the process, because Mark can't do everything for them, because some of these, they are capital projects, but they have to decide which is the priority.
it's got to come more from the director and less from the chairman of the
Yes.
board, I think is what the way I'm interpreting it at this point.
All right.
Just a quick question, David, you can answer. Because
Is the library self-sufficient in other words, you know, Mark has referred for all town buildings, is that classified as a town building? Is the maintenance part of his plan, or is it
Yes.
the library plan?
No, it's part of his plan, that in the budget, they do not have janitorial or any of the other issues. That building is owned by the town, so it's part of Mark Gifford's thing, but that's been part of the confusion as well.
I'm confused because I remember them being here and they were talking about how well, there was some repairs and things like that, and that didn't get in the capital plan. Now, is that a municipal maintenance capital expense or is it a library expense?
If it goes to the library for library action, it's a library capital item.
Okay.
The municipal maintenance department controls the water treatment facility, he controls, and his maintenance department. So, anybody getting any work out of municipal maintenance, that's fine and good. He repaired the police station steps,
Mm-hmm.
repaired them, not replaced them, because it had to be done. Well, Mark took that out of his budget somehow. Well, the same thing here. The library has to get into queue with the rest of the 5-year plan in order to be on the town administrator's radar screen. And that's part, now, if Mark Gifford can come through and does some painting and does some small repairs, that's because he knows it needs to be done. But the bigger projects, it needs to be assigned to the library.
Okay.
He's trying to mitigate some of their capital needs through another method.
Okay.
David, can I make a comment? It's okay. I was on the library. I was on Wednesday, the department meeting was there, Wednesday meeting, and reinforced about the library. To answer the original question, though, the problem is the library requests are actual expense items that should have gone through municipal maintenance and all the budget, and not capital items really. What's happened is so many things have just accumulated together. We suggested that they put together a whole program with an engineer what the buildings need overall, and come back with a full plan which then would qualify as a capital dollar numbers. The problem they have is these $4,000 for this, $3,000 for that. Each is a separate item, not linked together. And what's happened is municipal maintenance, for some reason, has never, with the library, put these things into their budget to go ahead and do them. So they've been accumulating over the years.
All right, thank you.
And that's the situation.
I'm done.
You're done, water pollution control.
Guess I gotta get in touch with Guy Campina before the budget. He was, he actually, I don't know if Sam had talked to him, but he was getting information together the last I checked. And we probably need to sit down with him and go over his capital. We just need to schedule a day to go over his capital and a few other items with him.
Water pollution control, right, and that both of you, basically, equipment you can find.
Mr. Chairman, I remember that vividly.
So I think you're at one point.
But
It's an area that's gonna become increasingly important, and you know it's gonna pop up in front of town meeting at some point, in all its fury. All right, because they're gonna at some point have to start replacing the equipment, which they already did the last time, and it's gonna get more and more intensive. All right, and we have the situation that eventually we're gonna have sewer commissioners, and I would hope that all the physical house will be in order before the sewer commissioners are finally passed by the legislature and they're elected, et cetera. So we need to start to move. I know Guy's busy, we're busy, but we have to start to do something.
It's not just that. When we met with Guy, he had no financial reports. He had no idea he had no information. And it's difficult for us to make suggestions based off air. So
I understand that, but
that was
met with him about 90 days ago, 120 days ago. I think he has more now.
okay, but that's what we're at.
He has more now, so I think we should go and chat with him, find out what the status is, and you know if there's anything that we can do to support him
Right.
with the new town accounts, et cetera. Tom, I don't want to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was there personally, but then we got talking about his budget, so I switched hats, and he I don't know what I should say. He mentioned that, some numbers that he was working on his budget, and he said that there was a lot of increases in quite a bit of supplies and things for his budget. He said his budget, I think he said, don't quote me to an exact number, but it was $6 million and change. And then he was working on some, using some betterment money to help that. It was just something that he was saying. But he was working diligently on his budget as of the other day, and he mentioned that it was almost complete.
We'll visit him very soon.
Yes.
I also know on the bulletin board where all the town meetings are posted, I looked at it a couple of days ago, and there was notification asking for bids on chemicals for water pollution control.
Yeah, he said that he'd gone
That's
crazy.
the first time that I've seen that, okay, but he is putting out for an RFP on that.
Cool.
All right, so again, I'd like to find out that whole process that he's initiating that, et cetera, what's gonna happen there, how it ties in with our procurement, et cetera. So I'm just saying, let's get ahead of the curve this time, rather than being reactive, let's try to be a little proactive.
That's like $6 million.
Your point is a good one. The only thing I would just add to that conversation is when Larry and I did speak with him, there was certainly a desire on his part to get figures and to do things the right way. So
I know that, and I'm just saying,
I hear you.
I don't want him to have to beg every week. I think we need to start approaching him on it, and that may speed the whole process up a little bit. Other liaison reports, rather than anyone else have anything else?
I do with inspectional services.
Sure.
There, in inspectional services, I was talking with them down there a few times because of some regional personal things. I've been down there a lot. So, and they seem to be not being able to get this paperwork out, but also what they've been saying is that there's a lot of money. That department should be able to make a lot more money than it is. Reason being is I believe that it's just something that I'm trying to go with them and work on is a lot of their fee structures haven't been updated in a while. The other problem I think where the town is losing money, and this was mentioned to me, is that there is really no person out there to go about and fine people on not doing things properly, not drawing a permit, they slap you on the wrist and say, go get a permit. Well, it's like a police department should be able to ticket or should be able to draw funds from people doing wrong. I mean, that inspection service is here to protect the town, to get permits and to make sure buildings and things are done properly. Well, if people aren't doing that properly, they should be fined for it, just like if you park illegally. That's something that department that hasn't been done, and to me that's a great expense that could add to the budget, or could add to their income in their department. It's something that I've talked to them about it, and it's never even thought of. At least that's what they said.
Sounds like a budget item that we should be discussing in the department head meetings.
Okay.
And I've said before that I think we should have questions going in ahead of time to the department heads before we meet. And
You wanna talk
I
about
think
this?
we
I
need
did
to
talk
pull
about
those
that
questions
also.
together and have everybody hear the answers on them.
Okay.
So if you want to get together on it, you want to send them to me, or you want to get together?
Well,
on it,
I've
you can.
talked to them about it a little bit, and like I said, I've been down there a lot lately, and that's something that's been brought up. But the biggest thing that they're all complaining about, not so much complaining about, or the biggest problem they see is they're not getting the permits out. That could be a tremendous liability for the
2
town.
weeks behind.
I mean, all
Again, that
sorts,
sounds like a budget issue.
or whether or not they need personnel, or whether they need a new computer program. I don't have the answer to what they need, but I think we're taking some tremendous risks here.
Something to discuss in the budget process.
Yep, something has to be done with it, okay? I don't know who's to do it or do something, but it's just not right.
We need to talk about that before we have him in and get us, if it has to be an extensive list of questions, it has to be an extensive list. Just get it
Those are the only
done.
two things I got to with inspection. Planning, I haven't done anything with, and I apologize for.
Also, as far as the department heads coming in, we did it last year, we had that long one-day session, but we also had some individuals in independently. because they were large departments or they had special issues or whatever, and I really have reserved the right to do that again with the town administrator. And he's agreed that, if they have to have somebody come, one particular department head to come back in greater detail on Wednesday night or something, then he would try to make arrangements for that. Anyone else? Everybody's yawning already, David, so you better make it real quick on your new business.
We'll have some on the new business too.
I'll be brief, and if we're lucky, we'll all be gone. I attended a Plymouth County Retirement System breakfast on the 21st of November. And
Free bacon and eggs.
yeah. And
Were we all invited?
that's the point.
Oh, sorry.
But thank you for getting to the point I intended to address. I got this invitation to a member of this committee, and he in turn went to the director of the Plymouth County Retirement Board and asked if I could attend. It turned out that the two of us were, from what I could see, the only two non-government employees in attendance. I would like to think that the selectman or the chairman of the finance committee would have been informed of this type of meeting. And that obviously didn't occur. One of the events that occurred there was the state had changed the law regarding the cost of living increases, which is currently based on $12,000, and they can increase it by increments of $1,000. So they voted, no, it's the perfect government system. They voted to raise it to $13,000, but they don't actually raise it. The retirement board does that. So they're kind of like, they sit there and they advise the head of the retirement board. Well, I mean, okay, they're not really voting on it, but the Plymouth County Retirement Board is going to do what they tell them to do, and obviously, why are the people that are going to benefit from the pensions farther down the road voting on these kind of questions as to what is the will of the towns? And it boggled my mind. But on the other hand, it's the first one that I've attended. I know absolutely nothing about what was on the agenda, what was going to be discussed. The point that I bring up is, I don't believe that the selectmen knew. I know the finance committee chair did not know. It would seem to me that these issues should be briefed to the Board of Selectmen if somebody from the town is going to be representing the town at the retirement board. And
Did someone from the town?
yes, there was someone from the town. The town administrator was in Boston at the time. He couldn't make it. But yes, there were two representatives from the town. Some people voted no on that particular issue. Some people voted yes. Kelly, there's a copy for you and a copy for the chair on what I picked up. Enough on the retirement. If the chair will indulge me. I had to take a test today. And like all tests, you're faced with two issues. Do you cheat, or do you take the consequences of either studying or not studying? If you cheat, you pass, but then again, you feel bad because you cheated. And then if you take the consequences of the exam.
There's the third alternative, which is to study.
There was a but I ultimately had to take the not cheating side of it because it was an ethics exam. And for those of you who have not completed your state ethics testing, which is due by the end of December, every 2 years, just a reminder that you need to do this, turn it into a town clerk.
Did you pass?
It's 25 questions, Larry. There are 4 answers. If you don't get it right, you can't go forward. You have to go back and guess again. So ultimately, you cannot fail the ethics test.
Did it take you long?
But you do need to do it.
I guarantee you, within 100 tries, you will.
Where did you get it? Where do you go to take
It's
this?
online.
Right online.
State
It's
ethics?
very
You go into the state mass.us /ethics/quiz, and you'll be there.
So I gotta go find someone
It
else.
shouldn't take more than 5
Email
minutes.
it to me,
State
and then I'll email you my result because I can't print it out.
Well, that's what you've done. You gotta print it.
You have to print it so it can go to,
You don't think Boston
Then I'm
gives you,
not getting it done.
you gotta have your graduation certificate.
Okay, that's fine. I think I did it.
Who
last
actually,
time.
what do you really think about this though? Oh, excuse me.
there was a notice that was sent out
Yeah.
at least twice on the town's email to each of you, all right, giving you the
Oh,
site,
sure.
et cetera. Please go back, double check your email.
But it's every 2 years, right?
Right. If you get them,
You already, I believe you already took it.
I
If you
took
already
it-
took it
I
last
took it
year, you're
with
fine.
The library board, I think.
You're
has
fine,
to
but
monitor.
there are other members here who took it 2 years ago. It has been sent out twice, okay? Check your email, you'll see it.
I'm done.
You're done.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. It's not in order. Any other, is there any other new business? All right, our next meeting date, nice try, because the journal will not be setting a meeting date, okay?
But before you do
Will be next Wednesday. All right, it will be a joint meeting now that I've received an invitation from the Board of Selectmen, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. There is a very, very limited agenda, obviously. It is the,
Guys,
it turns out now it will be the preliminary audit. All right, and I want to reemphasize this preliminary item again, too. All right, it is a preliminary. Please treat it as such. You may or may not get the document ahead of time, I'm not sure on the timing. If we do get it, I would ask, again, it's coming to us as a courtesy. If you receive it, there's verbiage to go with it, and you're not going to receive the verbiage until such time as Powers is sitting in front of you, answering questions and making his presentation. So I would not put it out there for every non public to look at without those explanations. It just doesn't make sense. All right, actually what we'll receive Wednesday is it's a preliminary, it's a basis for discussion. It's draft. It's a basis for discussion. And it's not a final, and if it goes out to people to read and develop their own opinions without watching what's going on Wednesday, it will be televised. All right, that it will have been presented inappropriately to the citizens of the town, in my mind. All right, because they will not have the background that will be presented by the town. So please,
That will be a
if you receive it, we'll try to get it out to you. All right? It's not meant for general consumption until the verbiage is, the oral verbiage is read. So, Brian, do you have questions? Or you want to move to adjourn?
Dominic had a
Uh, The budget won't be out until the 15th. Our next meeting is the 14th.
That's correct.
And he probably won't be available to us on the 14th until he gives it to the selectmen, which is probably on the 15th. So if those books go into Kelly's office, if they could notify us so some of us could drift by and get our copies.
I believe his budget is due to us on the 15th. It's due to both.
Right, but we're meeting on the 14th,
Yes.
not on the 15th, so he would most likely deliver it to Kelly's office.
Can I send someone to pick one up?
Yes. Oh, Kelly's only there till 12:30, so keep that in mind as well.
That's easy.
Some she works late at night doing something. So late, boring, her job is making fools long hours in boring situations. Yes.
With two-part question. Do we break any laws by shutting the TV program off before we adjourn to bring up certain questions, or is that not something that we can do?
I'm sorry, what?
I have a question that says, can we stop filming before we shut off to ask questions if someone doesn't want to have something public?
No.
That's all I asked.
He has the right to tape the entire meeting as long as we are in session. And if it's a subject that for the entire
I
committee,
just don't know
it
yet
has to be
whether
on
or
the,
not I
it
have
has
to
to
bring
be
it
on
up.
the
That's
agenda.
okay.
Okay,
Nope,
I'm sorry.
I'm done.
That's the law.
that's the law. I'm done. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn, non-debatable. All in favor?
Aye.